Rick Spielman is sticking around with the New York Jets as he will be Darren Muji's senior football advisor. The Jets have contacted Aaron Rodgers about his future with the organization, but can't say the same about Davante Adams. Is his time done in Florham Park? A lot to get into. We'll break it down and much more. All coming up here with Jets content creating legend, Matt O'Leary.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer, Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer, and Jets legend, Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of NY Flight. Jets Talk Thursday, February 6th, 2025. A lot to get into, but before we do that, smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Greatly appreciate all of your support here on this Thursday evening. Sorry for the no shows the past 2 days. We've basically been daily on this show for the past 2 months and changed some family stuff I had to deal with. Yesterday was really, really busy on Tuesday night. It was, so happy to be back. We're going to try to keep the content going. You guys are the ones who keep it coming. If you want to call into the show, pin comment in the chat, throw your questions in there. We'll be sure to get to those. Let's throw on our ticker down below for our membership raffle. February membership raffle is underway. Prize we're giving away: Joe Klecko signed jersey, Mark Gastineau signed jersey, Bill Parcells signed photo, free item from the merch store, and a channel emoji. Be sure to get on that if you haven't already. But let's bring on our guest for today's show, fellow Jets content creator, an absolute legend here. We did pregame shows all year long. Had him on a few weeks ago for our first offseason conversation. It's our guy, Matt O'Leary, back here on NY Flight. Jets Talk. Matt, what's going on, my man?
Not too much. Excited to be back on with you and talk some New York Jets.
For sure, Matt. A lot to get into. I mean, we were talking before the show about how the head coach search kind of gave us a bit of a bridge to talk about as Jets content creators, and really how the Jets always give us something to talk about in general. My plan was to start with Rick Spielman, but I guess I'm going to start with the news that broke just before we went on, and that's Davante Adams. Ian Rappaport of NFL Network reported the Jets have not contacted Davante Adams, while Aaron Rodgers made it known that he was contacted by the Jets and talks are underway with him, Darren Muji, and Aaron Glenn. Matt, where do you stand with Davante Adams overall? I think if he wants any shot in coming back next season, even if Rodgers comes back as well, he's going to need to restructure that deal. The one thing that is appealing to me, if the Jets were able to move on from Adams, is you cut him with a post-June 1 designation. You free up over $36 million in cap room, and for a team that doesn't have a ton of cap room entering free agency, I think this could be a really appealing option for the Jets if they were to move on from Adams. But on the flip side of things, the wide receiver core is not deep whatsoever. You have Garrett Wilson, then after that it's Xavier Gibson, Malachi Corley, both who I truly think haven't showcased anything that they are worthy of an NFL roster spot. So there's a lot of positives of moving on from Davante Adams that come with a lot of downsides. Where are you with this Davante Adams news right now?
Yeah, I personally think that the only way Davante Adams comes back is if you see Aaron Rodgers come back. And, I could totally see a scenario where he'd want to continue to play as Aaron Rodgers, winds down on his career. And Davante Adams, to a lesser extent, is on the back nine of his career too. But as you mentioned, if he is coming back, it can't be on that current contract. Too much of a dead cap hit for 2026. So it would have to be on a rework deal. And the same thing really goes for Aaron Rodgers too. It's funny, they're linked together saying that, I don't think Davante would be back unless Aaron Rodgers is back. But in order for both of them to come back, they're both going to need new deals. Yes. So I'm curious to see when that decision comes on Aaron Rodgers, because I think the Adams decision comes shortly thereafter. So if you're moving on from Rodgers, Davante Adams is likely getting moved on from as well. And if Rodgers is staying, great. Let's see the new contracts that they're going to play under.
Now, who are some wide receiver options you want the Jets to particularly covet, whether it's free agency, whether it's the draft, maybe guys they could potentially retain here? Because the Jets don't have a ton of pass catchers, not only wide receivers, but also tight ends. Tyler Conklin is a pending free agent. What Jeremy Ruckert shown, he could be potentially viewed as a cut candidate. Kenny Abewa, free agent. Zach Kuntz, I don't think is worthy of an NFL roster spot. This team is lacking a lot of pass catchers as we enter free agency and really dig into all these draft prospects. Anyone you want to really keep your eye on here? T. Higgins, Stephon Diggs, Keenan Allen, among some of the seasoned names who are free agents at the wide receiver position. Matt, who are you keeping your eye on as these talks progress here?
I would be surprised if the Jets threw that kind of money at a wide receiver, just because I'm thinking that Garrett Wilson's getting a contract extension this offseason. So if you're doing that, then you're essentially paying two guys to be number one receivers. And that makes building out the rest of the roster a little bit tougher unless they have some sort of plan where they're going to fill out the rest of the roster through the draft. But I think you're looking probably at some like mid-tier level free agent and someone in the draft. So like, let's assume they're moving on from Davante Adams. Maybe a guy like Joshua Palmer with the Chargers.
Yeah. Speedy.
And he's a bigger receiver at 6'1", 210. He's, I'm not saying he's putting up any gaudy numbers, but if you bring him in and then maybe add someone in the draft, like Tet McMillan's a name that a lot of people really like, first round for the New York Jets. And suddenly, you reshape your wide receiver room with McMillan and Wilson and Palmer as your top three options. And who knows, maybe you get anything functioning out of Malachi Corley to be your fourth option. And then you're in a spot where I think you could look okay at that wide receiver room.
Matt, the Jets get the coaching staff in place. We're talking about Davante Adams here right now on NY Flight Jets Talk. But the most daunting question, as the Jets are going to have to make a decision regarding this soon, is who's the quarterback in 2025? Pretty hard-hitting question here, pretty blunt. Is Aaron Rodgers the best option for the Jets in 2025? Who do you want to be the quarterback next season?
So if Aaron Rodgers is okay with taking the pay cut and is interested in learning the Tanner Engstrand offense and not doing it like the Aaron Rodgers way, then okay, I could be talked into him coming back. But if there's any sort of pushback on, no, like I still want Nathaniel Hackett here, or I want Lazard, you can't cut him, or we're gonna go. I'm gonna call plays at the line of scrimmage again, and it's not gonna be the Tanner Engstrand show. And then I think they're probably better off moving on. So again, we don't really know what the conversations have been like between Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji, and Aaron Rodgers, but I'm kind of hoping that they're using this time to gauge really what Rodgers wants. And if he's interested in being a part of just another guy on the 53, okay. If he wants that same treatment that he was getting with the pass regime, that's something that I'm not willing to do.
Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Follow Matt O'Leary if you haven't already. At Matt O'Leary NY. Really appreciate all your support. Keep the questions coming in. We'll be sure to get to those. Call into the show. Pinned comment in the chat. Matt O'Leary, Connor Long here with you guys on this Thursday evening. Matt, I couldn't agree with you more when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, really. As much as I, towards the end of the year, I was pretty big on Tyrod Taylor. All the points you made, I agree with spot on. If he's willing to, adapt to a more modern day offense, which I think Tanner Engstrand is going to implement right away, cool. I'm into that. And also, most importantly, he's willing to take a pay cut, which I think he really needs. I'm going back and forth, really, if Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji are going to want him back, because there's like so many different things they pointed out about drafting and developing players, sustained success. You're not getting that with Aaron Rodgers, but at the same time, Aaron Glenn says he looks for a winner in a quarterback, and historically speaking, there's not too many, quote, winning quarterbacks available next season for the Jets other than Aaron Rodgers. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the Jets do here over the next few days. The one thing, though, is if you don't want Aaron Rodgers back, the problem is finding a replacement, because a lot of the options aren't all that appealing, whether it's Carson Wentz, Jimmy Garoppolo, Taylor Heineke, Marcus Mariota, Josh Dobbs, Justin Fields, Hendon Hooker, Tyrod Taylor, a lot of these guys in free agency. So overall, I think Aaron Rodgers gives them the best chance to win, but I think there are a lot of moving parts that are going to need to, a lot of chips that are going to need to fall his way if he wants to come back with this team next season. Let's move over, Matt, to some news that came out in the front office this morning. Rick Spielman is joining the Jets front office as a senior football advisor. I had some beat reporters on the show, and I asked them, do you think there's any world Tannenbaum or Spielman stick around? They all pretty much said no. They think that I thought this was a one-time thing. However, that does not seem to be the case. Rick Spielman is sticking around as Darren Muji's senior football advisor. Matt, I want to gauge your thoughts here on this move, but I'm a huge fan of it. let's look. Rick Spielman is not someone who last served as an NFL GM in 2000. He was an NFL GM with the Vikings all the way back to 2021. He has a winning record as a GM. Last had a winning season in 2019. Drafted Justin Jefferson towards the end of his tenure in Minnesota. An experienced guy who's going to come in and help out a first-time GM in Darren Muji. It was a bit of a surprise for me, Matt, here, but thoughts on this move?
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's one of the one of the most under the radar moves the Jets have made so far. I think obviously Aaron Glenn gets the most hype and people are most excited about him, and deservedly so, with how he speaks and just he was a former Jet. So I totally get that. But for Spielman, he's going to be someone that both these guys can lean on, who has experience. He held down essentially the GM role in Minnesota for 17 years, a really long time, and has had, success there. They went to a couple NFC championship games under his watch. And also, I think the biggest thing is this adds a little bit of a buffer between Woody Johnson and the football operations, which, we've talked about at length, the two of us, that, Woody Johnson needs to hire people and get out of the way and let them do their job. And I think just adding this extra blockage, almost, if you will, between Woody Johnson and the front office is wise.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with you overall. It seems like this is going to be the only other big front office hire for the Jets. Matt, is there someone else you want to see added on the coaching staff? There are still some coaching positions the Jets need to fill. Run game coordinator, running backs coach. Deuce Staley is a name of interest for me as the potential running backs coach, assistant head coach job. An offensive mind, maybe a Todd Haley. You could somehow squeeze a Doug Peterson in the building. Any other names you want to watch on the coaching staff here?
Yeah, on the offensive side of the ball, I think it would be important for them to add a veteran on that side. Like, you have that with Steve Wilks as the defensive coordinator. He has head coaching experience. He's been a defensive coordinator, been in the league a really long time. You mentioned Todd Haley by name. I think that's kind of the perfect route to go. There's a connection with the overlap of Aaron Glenn as a player with the Jets, and when Todd Haley was a wide receiver coach here with the New York Jets. And I'm not asking for Todd Haley to be the play caller in 2025. That's obviously a little bit different, but just being a part of what is a really young staff, and you have a first-time play caller, at least at the NFL level, with Tanner Engstrand, I think he would be a good person for Tanner Engstrand to lean on.
Absolutely. Matt, let's transition back over to the quarterback position. I know we touched on it a little there with Aaron Rodgers. I mentioned Hendon Hooker, a name that's been floated around as a potential trade target in Detroit. He's never really gotten a shot at the NFL level, so we don't know who Hendon Hooker is. He suffered that gruesome ACL injury his final year of college at Tennessee. If he didn't suffer that injury, there were talks about him being a Heisman finalist, him being a top 15 pick. Ultimately, he was selected in the third round by the Detroit Lions. I think he'll need a handful of passing attempts in the NFL. I'm a fan of him if you want to give up a 7th round pick, a 6th round pick, see what he has. No other team, obviously, except the Detroit Lions, has more insight into Hendon Hooker than the Jets do. Aaron Glenn, former Lions defensive coordinator, Jets head coach, former Lions passing game coordinator, Tanner Engstrand, Jets offensive coordinator, former Lions tight ends coach, Steve Hyden, Jets offensive line coach. So the Jets have a lot of insight here into Hendon Hooker. And Matt, I super chatted in a question on your Talking Jets show on Tuesday. I said, would you trade Hendon Hooker straight up for Jordan Travis? I think you, Ryan, and Greenbean all said no, you'd hold on to Jordan Travis. I want to get your thoughts there. What is the fascination with Jordan Travis here? I understand he has upside. I understand he has a lot of talent. I am a huge Jordan Travis fan. However, I think there is a legit shot. He never logs an NFL snap in his entire career, just given the injury he's coming off of. Hendon Hooker, I think, is someone who's fully healthy and has upside as a backup quarterback, a third-string quarterback in this league. So what exactly would you give up potentially for Hendon Hooker? Are you interested in him? And why wouldn't you give up Jordan Travis for Hendon Hooker straight up?
Because they're basically on the same trajectory. With Hendon Hooker was hurt his last year in college and then didn't participate as a rookie due to that same injury. And that's the exact thing that's happened with Jordan Travis this year. I'm not really putting my chips in either of their baskets, but at least with Jordan Travis, he's significantly younger. Hendon Hooker's already 27 years old. So I think that plays a factor in it for me. I'm not gonna, go nuts if they traded a 6th or 7th round pick like for him, because I don't think it's, a value to get upset over. But I think he's in a similar boat to Jordan Travis and is a couple years older too.
But also at the same time, Matt, Hendon Hooker knows the offensive system. We've actually seen him on an NFL field. There's still the massive question mark with Jordan Travis. Will he ever be able to take a snap? That's my one main thing for him. That's why I said you have to be pleasantly surprised with anything you get out of Jordan Travis, just because I don't think you're going to get anything out of him. I hope he is the Jets' Brock Purdy. I just don't think that's the case. Hendon Hooker is someone who knows these coaches, is familiar with the Lions' offensive system. Again, it can't hurt to. Yeah, I'm okay with trading a 6th or 7th round draft pick. I understand why you potentially might want to steer clear of trading Jordan Travis. I think there's a massive concern with Jordan Travis from a health perspective. I understand the age thing with Hendon Hooker, but I feel like you're basically trading the two people who have the same skill set, who have a similar injury history. However, one's fully healthy, one has played on an NFL field before, the other is not guaranteed to take a snap in his entire career. That's the way I look at this potential trade.
Fair enough. And on Hooker too, the plus would be that he knows Engstrand, and if Engstrand feels strongly enough to trade for him, then that's a good sign. I just don't know if I buy that, because Teddy Bridgewater came off the street as a high school coach who then was active as the backup over Hendon Hooker in a playoff game. So I don't know how much they really believe in him in Detroit.
Sorry there, Matt. I'm mic muted by accident. Before we get your questions in the chat, keep them coming. We'll be sure to get to those. You spoke about Tanner Engstrand. I want to kind of transition back to the wide receiver core, which we spoke about. Malachi Corley, that awful gaffe in week 9 it was against the Texans. It called that dropped the ball before the goal line. Not only was not a touchdown, it was a freaking turnover, which thank God didn't kill the Jets and didn't force them to lose the game. Funny enough, on our pregame show, Matt, I chose him as a touchdown scorer as my hot take, and I was about half an inch away from that. Drops the ball right before he crosses the goal line. After that, we really did not see anything out of Malachi Corley from a snaps perspective all season. Someone whose skill set I think is a bit comparable to Malachi Corley is Jameson Williams, and how the Lions really unlocked his potential this past season, using him as a gadget player, using him on those RPO screens, those jet sweeps as a motion man. How do you think Tanner Engstrand's arrival now in Florham Park could potentially alter Malachi Corley's role on this team?
Yeah, I just hope for the Jets' sake and for Malachi Corley's sake that they can get him the ball in some creative ways. I don't know if he's ever going to be like a true starting caliber wide receiver, but with his skill set, he's very good with the ball in his hands. So I'm not opposed to, getting him involved in the screen game or giving him an end around every once in a while. And, I think if used properly, there might be a package for him that makes sense. The last coaching staff didn't feel very strongly on him during the season, I'm assuming, from what they saw. So I'm just curious what Engstrand sees from this roster to begin with. And one of the guys that they're going to scout through this process is Malachi Corley. And hopefully he sees something there that he can utilize and make him a factor in 2025.
Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Really appreciate all your support. Helps us grow significantly. Any questions for Matt and I, throw them in the chat. We'll be sure to get to those. Start things off with Wild Wave, channel member moderator here on the show, says trade Adams. Matt, the thing is, I don't think any teams would be interested in Davante Adams for the same reason why the Jets wouldn't bring him back. It's the current deal. The current contract right now is not appealing, I think, to any team on the market.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think if you were calling other teams and saying, hey, you are interested in giving up something for Davante Adams, they would say, no, we're just going to wait you out until you have to cut him, because they know the drill there. So I'm not saying that he can't play anymore. Clearly he showed that he can, but the contract does play a major factor in it. So I don't think he's really a trade option.
Wildwave comes back in with his 2-month member super chat. Love Spielman. Wonder if he suggests trading Garrett Wilson. Matt, I know you went on your rant on your channel the other day for the Garrett Wilson trade rumors. If he's considering trading Garrett Wilson, I love Rick Spielman. Get him out of the building right away.
Yeah, I don't know. He was pretty happy when Justin Jefferson fell to him in the draft. I don't know if you saw that video circulating.
I saw that right before we came on. I was on Instagram Reels. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think he would do that. Not saying that Garrett Wilson is Justin Jefferson. Clearly, Justin's in a tier of his own, but I don't think Garrett Wilson would be someone that, or I would hope. I don't know for a fact, but I would hope that this is not a guy that they're looking to move.
Agree 1000%. I think you have to do everything you can to extend Garrett Wilson, try to make him happy here. But let's be real, even if you request a trade, the Jets have all the leverage here. They have him under contract this season. They have him under contract the season after. Then they have the franchise tag, even if they want to wait that long. I hope they get an extension done as soon as possible, though, with Garrett Wilson. Talk about someone who's quarterback proof. 3 seasons in the league, like 8 or 9 different quarterbacks, something like that, has eclipsed 1,000 yards every single season. Reminds me a bit of Terry McLaurin, Matt, at the start of his career, his ability to produce such high quality numbers while dealing with that quarterback carousel. So I think you do everything you can to keep Garrett Wilson in the building. Speaking of Garrett Wilson, our guy Allen in the building, would you accept 2 1s for Garrett or a 2 and a 5 for Breece Hall? Matt, I'm gonna let you go first here on this one. This is this is tough. 2 tough proposals here.
So I am a proponent of, or I'm someone who said that I think the Jets should keep both of those guys.
Okay, yeah.
But that is the kind of return you are looking for if you were to move on from those players. I would think about it. I lean towards no, and my reasoning behind it is not that it's not fair value. I just don't like the precedent that it sets for this team, because I feel like both Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall have come in here. They've done their job. They should be rewarded with, at least Garrett for sure, should be rewarded with a contract. And then around the league, if teams or players are looking and going, well, Garrett Wilson had nobody really throwing him the football and was productive his first 3 years in the league, and instead of paying him, they trade him away. Why would I want to go there? So I just kind of wonder about the negative impact that it could have from a perspective standpoint of other guys, around the league. But I like that Allen threw out like a legitimate trade offer. Some of the ones that I was seeing was like a second
4th and a 1,
a second round pick and a shitty wide receiver 3 somewhere else. And like, that's not going to do it for me. But at least I think with this offer for both those guys, you have to at least think about it.
You think about the Garrett one, you say no to the Garrett one. Breece, I think you take that all day. Let's keep in mind here, Breece was a 2nd-round pick, so you're basically, cracking even there if you were to flip a 2nd-round pick for Breece Hall, and then you get a 5th-round pick, hope to maximize that. Obviously, a day 3 pick, piece of draft capital for the Jets. I really like Breece Hall. I think he's a great Jet. The thing is, I don't think he's getting extended here. I don't think he's going to be here in 2 years, so you might as well get something for him than letting him walk in 2 years and get absolutely nothing from him. I'm a huge fan of Breece Hall. I'm a huge fan of his skill set, but overall, what has he showed us that he is worthy of signing a lucrative extension? We know that running backs, there's really no market for them anymore in the modern day NFL landscape. I don't think there's anything that indicates Breece Hall should be back here on a multi-year deal with the Jets. You might as well flip him while you can get a 2nd and a 5. I think that would be a great deal for the Jets. That's where I am on Allen's trade proposal. Appreciate you tuning in. As always, speaking of letting guys walk for nothing, DJ Reed is a name that is supposed to walk in free agency for the Jets. And Caden, our guy, comes in the chat. Could the Jets get a compensation pick for DJ Reed signing? Matt, I'm not too familiar here. I know you're pretty good with the cap. Can the Jets get a compensatory pick for letting DJ Reed walk?
Potentially. So it has to do with how many guys you lose in free agency versus how many guys you end up signing in free agency. So it's it'll be dependent on how active the Jets are in free agency itself. But for right now, the answer is possibly.
My whole thing, Matt, is that I thought it was viewed at the end of the season, just based on his comments too overall, that it was a foregone conclusion. DJ Reed's leaving in free agency. Now you bring in Aaron Glenn. DJ Reed was vocal about the signing on Twitter. Obviously, DJ Reed, a cornerback. Aaron Glenn, former cornerback. I don't think it's, signed, sealed, delivered that DJ Reed is not back on this team next year. If, gun to my head, what's my decision? I don't think he's back, but I don't know if it's particularly a foregone conclusion at this point yet.
I really like DJ Reed, and if for some unforeseen reason the Jets could get him on a team-friendly deal, then I think that would be great. My issue is I think he is going to be one of the better corners to hit the free agent market this offseason, and I believe someone will pay him to be a number 1 corner, which I think will price the Jets out of that window. I just don't think they'd be able to afford it.
Speaking of corners, I'll transition over to the draft real quick. Matt, Will Johnson is a name who's been talked about. He's going to potentially be there at pick number 7 for the Jets. He's gone through a lot of injuries. I like his size, but are you really leaning, if DJ Reed were to walk in free agency, potentially taking a cornerback with the 7th overall pick, or is that a bit of a reach just based on positional value itself?
No, I don't think it's a reach. Now, I'll be honest, I don't think that is my preferred plan to
No,
take
not
that
at all.
corner at 7. But on draft night, if that was the pick, I wouldn't be upset about it. I would get it because, this defense that they're going to be running is very different than the Robert Saleh one. They will blitz and they like to get pressure. And if you are going to blitz, you need to have really good cover corners. I know
For
you're
sure.
young for the Rex Ryan era, but what made the Rex Ryan era so great was he used to blitz like a crazy man, but he had Darrelle Revis and Antonio Cromartie as two really good cover corners, and
Yeah,
that's why he was able to be successful.
for sure.
If you don't have the good cover corners,
You can't
somebody's
blitz.
going to be open and they'll just get the ball out. So they they're going to be. I think they'll put more of an emphasis on the defensive backs than the previous regime did. Um, I would rather go either defensive line or wide receiver or even offensive line before corner, to be honest with you, in the first
Yeah.
round. But I feel like there's something that I like about this draft coming up is I think there's a lot of directions the Jets could go, and you could justify just about each one of them.
Few more minutes here with Matt before we let him go, so we'll get to the final questions here. Our guy Brian Glick in the building. Garrett Wilson, 4-year, $120 million extension with 80 guaranteed. Matt, I think that's pretty much identical to what Amon-Ra St. Brown got. I know it was 4 for 120. Not too sure on the guaranteed money. Are you willing to pay Garrett Wilson that much for an extension here? Is it anything to keep him in the building long term?
100%. I think 4 for 120 is a great estimation of what it's going to take. I think I said in my video somewhere around like 110 to 120. It's probably going to be closer to that $30 million a year mark. And I think he's worth it. I think you do it.
Allen coming back in. Lazard and Mosley should be post June 1 cuts. Lazard, I think there's no shot he's back on the team. CJ Mosley's a really interesting one, riddled with injuries this past year, but he's really been great for like developing these younger linebackers. The problem is how much left in the tank does he really have? And potentially if what's his name, Jamie Sherwood is to walk in free agency, the Jets have a bit of a problem at the linebacker position as well. Like a lot of it's going to be like, well, coaching is the main difference. I've been very vocal about that between being 5-12, 12-5 last year. But there are going to be a lot of moving pieces this offseason. A lot of players the Jets are not going to have next year that they had last season. Whether it's they're going to have to completely revamp the safety room, potentially completely revamp the linebacker room, add a few receivers, add an offensive lineman. Like this team, I think, is a few pieces away from potentially being a playoff team. Yes, coaching played a huge role, like I said, in the struggles. However, they need a lot of pieces. So are you a fan of moving on from CJ Mosley at this point in his career?
I think so. I just find it really hard to believe that he's ever going to play again. And I love CJ Mosley, and I hate saying that because I thought he was a really good Jet. But at his age with neck and back issues, that's so hard to come back from. And it really, he didn't look right all year. From the very first game of the year against San Francisco, there were times where he was getting banged up and would miss a couple plays. And then the injury got worse in that Tennessee game. But I just have a hard time seeing him come back and be able to be anywhere close to the player that he was, unfortunately.
Maybe, Matt, he's beloved in this locker room. He's been a leader. Maybe he sticks around as potentially in the coaching side of things. I know he has no coaching experience whatsoever, but maybe he comes in a quality control guy, assistant, inside linebackers coach, maybe something like that. I know you gotta run, so we'll squeeze this last question in here before we let you go. Another one from Allen. Speaking of linebackers, Quincy extension will be very tricky. I don't know if this regime will be gung ho paying a linebacker $13 to $15 million per year. Quincy Williams is someone who signed an extension a few off seasons ago, and they're due to pay him again. Obviously, wasn't an All-Pro this past season. I still thought he had a solid year after being an All-Pro in 2023. Again, I want Quincy Williams back on this team. Talk about a homegrown guy. I understand Darren Muji is not the guy who picked him up off waivers, but you have to retain homegrown talent no matter who brought them in.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like he's really the energy on that defense. Like obviously Sauce and Quinn, and there's a ton of talent, but when Quincy's at his best and flying around making plays behind the line of scrimmage, I think he's really useful. To give a little bit of pushback on Allen here, I think it's a good point to bring up. You're not sure if they're going to pay a linebacker 13 to 15 million, but if they are blitzing as much as what I think they are going to, I think Quincy starts racking up some sacks this year,
I know.
more than in years gone by. So I think they could really see the value of him, not just looking at like a general, just a stereotypical inside linebacker with his speed and ability getting after the passer. I think that might be intriguing to them.
Everyone smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Greatly appreciate all your support. Follow Matt, of course, if you haven't already, at Matt O'Leary NY on all social medias. Matt, appreciate you hopping on with me. As always, you got any final thoughts here on this Thursday evening?
No, not really. I mean, it was a blast to come hang out with you as always, talk some New York Jets football, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Matt, appreciate you hopping on as always. Like I said, he's Matt, I'm Connor. That'll do it for us. I'm your host, Connor Long, signing off. As always, JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.